Kingsman, the Secret Service. Now, I was pumped for Kingsman. Ever since I saw that first trailer, I knew I had to go see this movie immediately. So the wait was all the more frustrating when the film was bumped from October to February. But it's February now. I've seen Kingsman. Let's review this delightful film. Now, Kingsman, the Secret Service, is about a young man called Eggsy, who 17 years ago, his dad died when undergoing training to become a Kingsman agent. Kingsman being this secret agent, spy service sort of thing. But now Eggsy is a young man, he's about 20 years old, and he's been involved in some petty crime as of late. So the bail gets paid for by a man called Harry Hart, who is a Kingsman agent. And the two of them get talking, and Harry convinces Eggsy to be put to the test, to undergo training to become a real Kingsman agent, just like his father. But meanwhile, a man called Valentine is planning on wreaking havoc on the world with his special little SIM card. Now, I was excited for Kingsman for many reasons, one of which being that it is directed by Matthew Vaughn. Now, I haven't seen all of his works, but I did particularly love both Kick-Ass and X-Men First Class. So it is no surprise to know that Matthew Vaughn knows what he is doing behind the camera, because this film as well is directed fantastically. All the shots look great. They're just really well done. Just aesthetically, Kingsman looks fabulous. And Matthew also adds in this high-octane, fast-paced style to the film that makes the 2 hours and 10 minutes go by like a half-hour TV episode. Now, let's talk about the action, because, my word, the action. All of the action scenes are directed superbly. They all do rely on the background to make it feel more cool and to give it a more appropriate style to the scene. But none of them are really set pieces, which is impressive. All of these action scenes are choreographed beautifully and on a moderate to large scale. And once you think that all of the action is over and done with after a more than satisfying climax, well, no, you couldn't be any more wrong, as it continues to go on and up the ante even more, especially with two very impressive action scenes, one of which is set in space. Now, usually I don't like action scenes set in space. They're just not for me. Because I love James Bond, right? But Moonraker sucks. It's so disappointing, especially considering that it comes right after my favourite James Bond film, The Spy Who Loved Me. But the reason why I don't think Moonraker works so well is because of the space setting, and that it feels really out of place and becomes just too silly and stupid for a James Bond film, and the only thing really saving it is Roger Moore kind of playing along with it. But in Kingsman, it works, because the space action scene is believable with the plot. It needs to be in there. It's just brief, and it intercuts appropriately between an action scene on land and this action scene in space. But let's not forget the magical R-rated action sequence, which you will know what I'm talking about with this scene if you've seen the film yourself. Because it is the scene where the R16 rating truly shines. The rest of the film could easily have been toned down to be an M, and, you know, nothing would have changed. The film would have been just as good. But this particular scene needs to be in there. It needs to have blood. It needs to be R16. An M rating would not have done it justice. The performances are much better than they ever really should be for a film like Kingsman. None of the actors are typecast, except maybe the exception of Samuel Jackson, but his character still has enough differences to him to make him feel new. Colin Firth suits up as the dapper gentleman, kicking ass, and he pulls it off perfectly, as if he has been practicing this every day at home for the last 10 years and has just been waiting to unleash it all in this one role. It is great to see Mark Strong not playing a villain for once. He plays a likeable side character, providing some humour. But the real standouts are newcomers Targan Edgerton and Sophie Cookson, who come to life as their characters with flying colours. They show off the multiple sides of their characters and with the right balance. I cannot wait to see what they will be in future projects. The script is also ingenious. It is so clever, much more than expected. It adds a very witty, self-aware sense to it all, but there are also moments of riveting dialogue. One scene in particular in the third act of the film between Michael Caine's character and Targan Edgerton's character. But the best thing about the script is how unpredictable it all is. Sure, it has a familiar setup, but for the majority of the film, you do not know where it's going. So it's a delight to see it all unravel towards the climax. But the problem that I had with the script is that it doesn't seem to have enough humour, or at least not as much as expected. Because when the jokes are there, they hit good. They hit really good. Believe me, especially one after-dinner pun that had my cinema roaring with laughter. Like, I've not seen a cinema audience laugh that hard since the knife steal scene in Housebound. But there just could have been more jokes like that. And as I say in my written review for The Theory of Everything, which is on my blog, I'll put the link to that down below, but I say in that review that one of the main delights of that film is that it has a lot more humour than expected, and that it has much more humour in it than a lot of the comedies I see nowadays. And unfortunately, that's the case when comparing it to Kingsman. The jokes in both movies are about as funny as each other, but The Theory of Everything actually has more jokes, unfortunately. I mean, I will give Kingsman huge applause for having more jokes in it than most blockbusters nowadays, but it just didn't seem to run away with the perfect opportunities when they were present to make more jokes. So now, the one sentence review. Forget MI6. Kingsman is here with spectacular action scenes and witty self-awareness that make this the most rewatchable and most entertaining film of 2015 already. I'm going to give Kingsman: The Secret Service 4.5 stars out of 5. So, I highly recommend you watch Kingsman: The Secret Service. It's definitely the most universally appealing film of this year, up until probably Avengers Age of Ultron comes out. I mean, everyone's going to flock to see that, and everyone's going to enjoy that, I'm pretty sure. But, I mean, just go see Kingsman. If you love thrillers, go see Kingsman. If you love satire, go see Kingsman. If you love comedies, go see Kingsman, despite that one gripe I had. And if you love action movies, go see Kingsman. Because this is better than a lot of the action blockbusters from Hollywood that I see in the winter time. And this came out in February. I was chowing down my popcorn, and I'm probably gonna go see this again. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm Thomas, and that's a review.
Manners maketh man.
I have trouble understanding you people sometimes. You all talk so funny.